What an interesting August 1 number.
For sure. So um, I expect most are going to find this report to be bearish, and it's going to hinge on being bearish because of those July placements. Now, I think I think the story's a little more complicated here because when you look back at 2023, July placements um, were abnormally low. And I think so. All right, so July placements came in at 105.8 of a year ago. That was nearly outside the upper end of the pre-report estimate. The upper end was 105.9. Average guess of 104.2. So everyone understood that we were likely going to be higher given just where we were last year. Um, but perhaps being that far at the upper end is going to be the bearish news for cattle markets. On feed August 1, 100.3, just keep saying we're kind of running the same levels of on feed. And to our discussion about cattle dressed weights, keeps telling me that we're feeding these cattle longer, and that's all providing us with lots that tend to be fairly full. I'm not convinced longer term we can still keep doing that. We're still running above where we were over the 2016 to 2020 average period, by the way, when you look at that. But placements numbers certainly got, I think we'll get some folks' attention. We'll see where we end up Monday morning on markets.
And that said, I mean, and I know we talked the risk management element at the beginning, right? But knowing that this is where this is, or does the market digest it because we knew a year ago placements were such a one-off in comparison to where they should have been or where the rest of the year had played out?
I think if we get some slightly bearish, that's where we should be given the placement number we ended up with. So we'll see where these markets are at. But to risk management, all right. So I'd say way too often LRP. For those that aren't doing any kind of risk management, LRP, although we talk about it like it's a put option using futures markets, it is not that. In fact, you know what you're going to pay up front. Sorry, what you're going to pay. You don't have to pay until that contract is done, but you know what you're going to have to pay. There are no margin calls. I think it's fairly straightforward. For those that have never done risk management, there are so many great opportunities, even though we've seen some slide in cattle prices, to protect the downside. And if you get far enough out of the money, it's still relatively inexpensive. So I encourage those that will say, well, I've just never done it, I'm not going to start. This is a good time to reach out, especially if you already have a crop insurance agent. They're more than likely selling LRP as well. Find someone that you trust out there that's in this business, and they'll walk you through. It's a pretty straightforward step-by-step process.
Scott, that'll do it for us this week. As you look ahead to next week, we have quarterly outlook for U.S. ag trade. We'll take a look at U.S. and Canadian hog inventory and restaurant performance index. What are the major things you're watching for out of those reports?
Yes, I'm really curious on restaurant performance index to see as we look at general markets today, they're closing fairly strong on some hope that interest rates will get cut. And given some of the news from Wyoming today, it seems like that's in order. So do we get any kind of, are we getting any kind of bounce there? Are we getting something more positive? So ag trade, I will say, going forward, growth in consumption of our ag commodities across the board, I think that hinge a lot more on what happens in growth in global trade than domestic consumption. And so what do we see out of USDA's look at ag trade in front of us? I think will be interesting.